is the first in a series of talks for this year's Open House Festival, where we're going to be chatting to some of the UK's leading design-led architects and makers. But before we get started tonight, just to introduce myself, my name is Dean, and I'm joined by my colleague Christopher. This away, Chris. And together we are the team behind We Design Homes. We launched We Design Homes over about a year ago, and it's designed to help connect enthusiastic homeowners with some of the best architects across the country. So if you're looking to either refurbish, extend, or even build your own home, please don't be afraid to get in touch with us and see how we can help.
Thank you very much, Dean. It's my pleasure to introduce today's guest. Gundry Ducker is one half of and a founder of Gundry Ducker, London-based architects and interior designers. I think if you've been a regular guest of these sessions over the last couple of years, you might find Christian's practice really, really interesting and a little bit different for us. Extensive experience in sort of commercial and hospitality spaces, and also designers of some of London's most beautiful homes. Highly bespoke service, and sort of really involving their clients in individual discussions, which leads to a creation of beautiful, unique spaces, absolutely packed with character. So welcome, Christian. Lovely to have you along this evening.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Thanks for that introduction. Yeah, so basically, I'm just talking from our office in Hackney, so you might see some people walking around in the background and stuff. But I'm just going to run through a few. I'll start the presentation now.
Sure.
Okay,
oh, so, if anyone's got any questions, please don't be afraid to pop them into the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. And what we'll do is we'll try and read some of those in.
Just as a start, really. I mean, I think we started doing the residential projects probably about 10, 11 years ago. So seriously, and this is the first one we ever did, which was called Dove House, and I think we finished this in 2011. And this is your bog standard Victorian side return extension, the sort of the classic London project on a Victorian terrace house. And this one, this actually won Don't Move Improve in 2011. So that was quite good because that was the first project we did. And then moving on, this was a couple of years later. This was called the Slate House, and this was in Kensal Rise. And this was again another Victorian house conversion. This time was, the facade was pretty of slates. This was in Islington. This is a 3-story extension on the back of yet another Victorian house with a little 3-story black box with bathrooms in it, and then a 2-story glazed extension across the rear. This is a job in Hackney called Lauriston Road. Again, yet another Victorian house conversion, this time to a maisonette. This one is a little tiny thing. This is called the Owl House, which is what the clients christened it. So it's sort of owly scales. I think,
Christian, we might have a problem with the screen. There's the slides aren't moving on us.
Oh,
I'm afraid
they're not moving.
No, got a freeze on.
Oh,
what's happened there?
Really? That's weird. Is it? Maybe it's the internet or something. Let me just try again. I'll just stop share.
Sure thing. Yeah.
Oh, where? Oh, sorry. Resume share. It's doing nothing. Yeah, so. Tell you what, I'll stop share and start again.
Excellent.
Okay, let's try. Right, can everybody see? Is it moving?
Yes. Yeah? Loading at the moment. Fingers crossed.
People off the internet.
There we go.
Is that working? There we go.
If you flip the screen.
Yeah. Is it moving?
Just advance the slide there, Christian, see what happens.
Yeah, I'm moving backwards and forwards now.
No, I'm not getting any change here.
No, I'm afraid not.
Oh. I'll just make sure
there we go.
Be off the internet.
It's just taking a while to load, that's all.
Okay, so has it gone to the next slide?
It had, and now it's gone back again.
Okay, are we on the slide?
Yes, success.
Okay, so this, I've already talked about this. So this was, again, can you tell me when you get to the next slide so I can
We've got the two slides now with the roof light on the left.
Okay, and I'm now on my next slide.
Which is the 3-story extension on the back.
Yeah,
or
okay.
2-story.
Then we're on Lauriston Road, which is a 2-story extension. We on that yet?
Yeah.
Okay. The Owl House, which is the house that looks like the owl with the little porthole window.
Not yet.
Okay. Sorry about this, everybody.
That's all right.
A bad internet here. Okay. And then if you tell me when we're on the house with the bay windows, then I can just talk about that basically.
There we go. Bay house.
There we go. Okay. And then this is a project called the Bay Window House, and this is a little project where we took inspiration from an existing Victorian house, and we made a contemporary version of a bay window that exists on the back of the house. And this is a little view inside of a roof light that's just behind the bay window. Okay, so that's a bit of context of sort of previous work over some selected things over the last 10 years. So what I'm actually going to talk about today are two projects. And these are both alterations to modern houses. So, I mean, I think in common with most architects in London, most of our work is Victorian houses. But I think these two projects are an interesting contrast from that everyday norm. So is the slide of the green hallway up now?
Yes.
Okay, so the first project then, this is called the White Rabbit House. And what this is, it's actually a very, very ordinary house. It was a 1970s house built by a volume house builder, a terrace house unusually, but apart from the front, which has got this sort of slightly Georgian styling, other than that, it's just a completely standard 1970s house builder house. So anybody who's in any post-war semi or similar house, it's got a layout to be very familiar to them. So on the ground floor, it's 2 rooms and a very small kitchen. On the first floor, 2 bedrooms, a little box room at the front, and a bathroom at the back, and then a loft, a storage loft. So when the client first approached us, as with most clients, you know, the brief is always quite, you know, a simple brief. They say, okay, you know, it's got a plastic conservatory on the back that leaks. It's got 2.5 bedrooms. I'd like 3 bedrooms. I'd like to open up the kitchen into the main space. So very, very simple, brief. So any project that we do it's a mixture of the pragmatics, which are, you know, simple things like that, or, you know, there's always say, like, you know, when you come in the house, where do you put your coat, where do you put your shoes, where's the boiler go, where's the downstairs loo go, and then we try and mix that with a bit of magic, basically, a bit of thinking about how people move through houses, about what's the nature of the interior, how do you take what's a completely standard house and how do you do something special with the interior. So this page here, which I think is the page of the plans come up, the 3 plans.
Yep.
Is that up on the screen yet? Yeah. So a typical conversation we'd have with a client is we'd start off with, when we first meet someone, we start off with a series of images of sometimes things we like. We often invite the client to share stuff that they like. Sometimes people have a lot of stuff. Sometimes people say, well, you show me the stuff. And then we'll then work on plan layouts. So when we first started this project, you know, we offered the client various layouts, some really simple. So somewhere we almost retain almost all of the house. and some much more involved. As it turned out, the one we went for, which is the one at the bottom, is actually more or less what we actually built in the end. So the next slide, this is just an example of a sort of document that we produced where we would talk about images and we'd talk about ideas for spaces and materials and things like this. Now, one of the elements of the brief at this house was that the client wanted 3 bedrooms, and the only way to do this in this sort of house is to change all the floors around. So it was a 2-story house with a storage loft. So we thought, well, you know, the only way to do this is to move everything around to try and so we can get 3 full stories in. And having thought about that then brought up the whole opportunity of, well, we could remodel the whole of the inside of this house. You know, we don't need to be constrained by where things are at the moment. And obviously, because it's a 1970s house, often the discussion with a Victorian house is there's Victorian things that you know, there's bits of Victoriana, like there might be marble fireplaces or handrails or doors that you might want to preserve, and you might want to contrast those with, say, a modern extension on the rear. But with this house, there wasn't really anything that we want to keep with it, other than the facade, which you couldn't change. So doing this, we then thought, well, this is an opportunity to play with the space, to try and create some contrasts. I mean, someone said about this project, which is something I think we try to achieve. They said it's like a country house in miniature, and I sort of really like that comment, because I thought it was appropriate, because I think when we're dealing with projects, however modest they may be, and this is obviously, you know, it's not a big house, it's not an unusual house in many respects, is that we try and introduce moments and things that we've brought from looking at history or looking at much more grandiose or more important buildings. So the plan we came up for in this house is quite simple. So one of the things here is that, in parallel with sort of ideas about how we make space or lighting or other things, is really simple things. So how can we fit in all the things you need in the modern day? Where can we put these? So this project has a little bank of, you can see I'm circling with the mouse. Presumably we're on the slide with the checkered floor by now.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, okay. So there's a whole bank of stuff. So we've got a room for the cupboards, we've got a little laundry space, we've got a downstairs loo, somewhere for the meters here, and then a storage area for the kitchen. So that's managed to really efficiently package all the things you really need into one space, so we can leave the rest of the space open for nicer things. And it's quite a simple plan. So there's a open plan area here and a kitchen, and the kitchen sits around the corner. And the reason the kitchen sits around the corner is so you get the view out the double doors here. I mean, I think any modern scheme is always a compromise between a desire for open plan living and ideas of what's actually practical. So if you can, things like kitchens, if you can just slip them around the corner, so when you're sitting on the sofa, they're not in view. Things like that are, you know, quite important little moments. Yeah,
you can have that best of both worlds.
Yeah. And the other thing we often like to do is introduce some steps. So, you know, to have a space that's a uniform height and have a space that's a uniform level of light is probably not that interesting. So having a couple of steps between spaces is nice. You know, it can be somewhere to sit. It can change the ceiling height. And it can just feel like even though the space is effectively open plan, it feels like there's different zones in the same room. Now, this is the upstairs plan. So again, with the upstairs plan, what we did is, on the old sort of 70s layout, there was a long hallway here. There was that served the bedroom. And what we always try to do is get rid of bad space. A bad space, I mean, sort of corridor space, or space that isn't, it's neither useful, it's not helpful. So basically the landing of the stairs becomes the hallway. So with the, you basically, as you go up the stairs, there's 3 doors, bathroom in the middle, bedroom at the front, bedroom at the back, bathroom. And with the space we saved, we were able to make this into a triple height space at the front. And as you go up the house, again, you carry on in this little staircase, and there's a room at the top with a little loo. So that's the planning. This is the, and I'll sort of come to that later when I talk around the photographs. And this is just a little diagram of how the facade's made out of pieces of terrazzo. So again, we like to make lots of models and things like that. So this is a little model which I've actually got here. This is a little model that we made, and it's sort of about the experience of how you come in the house. So basically, it's about that you enter through a very modest little doorway, a very, like a sort of simple little doorway with a rounded top that was already there. And the idea here is that you then enter into this very tall space here, which is triple height, all the way to the roof. We actually wanted to have a roof light at the top, but we couldn't get planning permission for that. So it has to be a roof light at the back. And then one of the key ideas here is that when you come in, there's a view. So there's a view all the way back into the garden from the front door. And then this big lump here, this where the tunnel is, this is where all the coats and the shoes and the meters and all that sort of stuff is hidden. So nice. I'll just move to the next project. So again, so now we're on to the site stage. So here's your house. That's the old staircase. And this is a new structure. We built a new steel frame inside the existing house to accommodate our 3 stories inside the old 2 stories. Obviously, when you're doing this stuff, you want to keep as much as the old as possible. So as you can see, the old plaster on the that's fine. You don't want to throw anywhere. We start to build the stair. You can see that's winding up through the house. And I'm just going to the next one. So then I'm just going to move on to the finished photos. So can people see the one with the arched door?
Not yet.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it is.
Is that
Christian, before we go through to the kind of the final photography, how was the conversation with the client talking about, this triple height space and taking away essentially floor space? Because I know some people are always quite apprehensive, aren't they, about doing things like that?
Well, what we tried to do in a way, because we took an unused loft, and by moving the floors around, we made that into a habitable space. And by making the layout on the first floor a little bit more efficient, we sort of grabbed a bit of space there. When we first talked about it, we said, we presented some options from the very conservative to the more radical, and it was a conversation that developed, and it was a conversation that, okay, the space we've lost on the box room is a tiny amount of space, and we've much more gained the space back with the much bigger back extension and the loft and the being clever and being very efficient with space, which is, I think this house is incredibly efficient with space in the way that we can accommodate a lot of the storage in, every little, even the bottom tread has got something stored underneath it. So there's not a millimeter of space wasted in here. The little loo under the stairs is exactly the right size. Yeah. And this spiral stair is a really efficient little way of introducing a stair into a house, sort of semi-spiral stair. Are we okay to go back on the photo now?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so basically this is basically the journey through the house. So as you can see, that the arched door that was part of the original house. This is part of the sort of the neo-Georgian 1970s. And we actually sort of, you know, people are sort of snooty about house building neo-Georgian, but we sort of enjoyed it really. We thought it was a reasonably good attempt. And you can see the little fan light at the top. And this became a theme, really, the little fan light. This became a theme that, as you can see, there's various layers of fan lights that push back through the house. So this first one is about you go through a fairly modest little front door, your eyes drawn down the hallway, pass through a corridor to a window seat and beyond into the garden. And you'll see in the garden also reflects the design, as we talk about that like that later. And then as you enter the hallway, you're then in this really, really tall, quite light space. So although we couldn't have a roof light directly above, we have a roof light directly down, and that brings a really nice quality of light through this staircase. Then, so this is the staircase, and this gives the impression of being the idea here was to replicate like a classic cantilevered Georgian staircase made of stone. So let's make a modern version of that. But obviously, we're not working with those sorts of budgets here. So what this actually is it's just a wooden staircase, and these things are just laid on the top. They cantilever over the edge, so they give the impression that it's like a staircase in a grand Georgian house, but it actually isn't. And as you can see, underneath the staircase, behind the dog, is all the little cupboards containing all the useful things. Then through the little corridor, as you can see, there's a number of doors on this corridor. One's a loo, one's a coat cupboard, but again, all the little things that make life easy to live in this house. Again, a little detail of the stair. Again, this floor, this is a terrazzo floor, and these are the black and white checkers are. They're just some very cheap tiles from Topps Tiles, and we put them down and we infilled in with terrazzo, and then we polished it all to a sort of semi-matte finish. So then we into the corridor with all the storage on the left, and this is intentionally supposed to be quite a tight space. So when we're doing these designs, we often think about, you know, I think that the scale when you're doing a domestic project, scale is really important, and it's about the scale of a person. So some rooms are, you know, the room's quite tight around you. Some rooms, there's a level of expanse, and I think that's about making contrast. So making contrast between darker spaces and lighter spaces. You know, between sort of compression and space, and between weight and lightness in a way. So what we think in a way is these are quite grandiose sort of things to talk about, but we don't see any reason why you can't import these into a small 3-bed 1970s house in a way. Well, why not? You know, yeah. Why can't we make that as special as a you know, a country house, basically?
Yeah, if you're clever with the use of space and so on.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, you know, that this is sort of what, you know, this is these contrasts that make the architecture really, and push it beyond the house builder thing it started with. Okay, so this is the kitchen. So on the right is on the right are some full height doors, and behind those doors is the kitchen worktop. And the reason for this is that obviously, again, it's another open plan issue. If you've got an open plan kitchen, it's nice to be able to close some of it off. So basically, these doors fold back into pockets, and behind it is a 2-meter long bit of worktop. So that's got all the kettles and the toasters, and that's where you can prepare your food. And then when you don't want to look at the mess, you close the doors.
Nice.
At the end is a little window seat, and that's where someone can sit to talk to the cook. So if someone's cooking here, someone else can sit here. This is a view before the client moved in. So again, as we can see, the doors behind are hiding the worktop and other things. The little strips are a sort of play on traditional tongue and groove cladding, which is again, it's a historic reference really. So we made a very thin version of a traditional tongue and groove cladding. The worktop is basically the floor, but reversed. So the floor is dark pebbles in white cement. The worktop is light pebbles in black cement, because obviously you can't doing a light coloured terrazzo worktop not be practical. It gets very easily stained. So that's why we made the top. And it's a nice contrast between one's the inverse of the other.
Yeah.
Again, so a little window and some double doors. And the other thing that we often say to people is, people say, oh, I want the whole of the back of the house glazed. And we say, well, actually, maybe it's nicer not to do that. Maybe it's nice that there are some areas where you can sit. So a bit more, because the problem with having all the back of your house glazed is that at night you have a black hole. And in the UK, summer's only a certain part of the year. So I think it helps characterize the space if there's more things going on. This is a little roof light, and basically this is the old back of the house. And when you look at the roof light, you can see the house above. Okay, so this is we're now in the garden, and the client had a garden designer called Adolfo Harrison, and he sort of followed on from us, and he did this really, really nice planting scheme that then follows on some of the internal themes, and that then brings the house into the garden. So this little trellis again, so we're off from the front door right to the back of the house. We have this repeating shape. This is the back of the house. Again, we have this column here, and the column isn't actually structurally necessary, but again, it's about splitting the space up, splitting the opening up, so it's not this huge space. Now, as we go, so now we're going up the stairs, and as we go up the stairs, we change from terrazzo to a cherry. And the reason for that is when you move into the bedroom space, I think you need a softer material. So this is like the private space. So we change the floor, which we keep the stair design, but we change the material, so it's more intimate as you go up the stairs and less formal. And this stair, again, it's a small stair, but there's something nice about the scale. It's very, as a person, it feels exactly right, and suitable for a domestic space. This is a little hallway. So this is the very efficient hallway. We've got the 3 doors to different bedrooms. And then this is just a few shots of the client after she decked it. So she's obviously got some really nice collection of furniture. And I think what this is about, in a way, is that some areas of a house, we can quite highly design, but other areas, it's fine to keep it simple. So in the living space, we didn't do a lot really, because we thought, well, we know the client's got some nice stuff. So in those areas, it's about the client's stuff. It's about letting their stuff occupy space. So we're sort of working with the hallway, and we're working with certain views and spaces, but some of the other spaces are just simple, just painting the walls, simple colors, basically. So you don't have to, I think it's easy to be overwrought and over-designed and make every house laden with stuff, but actually it's a balance between keeping it simple in some areas, and also it's a budget thing. Obviously, if you can spend the budget in certain areas, the other areas are really simple. Okay, so actually, I was going to stop this now.
It's funny how you see so many. Sorry, Christian. It's funny how you see so many homes that have been designed with not considering the homeowner's own furniture and bits and pieces, and you only ever see kind of blank shots.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously. I mean, we actually had this house on open house, but we had it on open house basically like the day it had been finished. So whenever you came round, there was nothing in there. So, but obviously when you go around there now, it's absolutely full of stuff. So it's a we're not designing. This is a domestic space. It's someone's home, so it's also about their things. So so it's really important that that's the balance you have to make, really. But we can, the hallways are area of expression and the kitchen and so on. But some spaces we just say, okay, it's about your furniture, or it's keep those spaces simple. Yeah.
And then why did you call it White Rabbit House?
Well, that is basically because it's a sort of playful. There's a playfulness in the detail, I think. And again, it's a little reference to the miniature country house and the surprise element, the fact that you come to this door and you don't expect this thing behind it. So it's an idea that it's about surprise, basically. And also we have the black and white checker floor, of course, but that's it's just about surprise and the unexpected, really, I think. Yeah.
You're stealing my questions
So,
there. This is unfair.
Okay.
How was it? Sorry, Chris.
Christian, received wisdom, at least, in my experience, the received wisdom is if you want a house to sort of feel bigger, you basically paint it all the one color. And I think tying in with your Alice in Wonderland sort of reference, that I love the way that you've sort of, there's the changes in sort of textures and shades and colors, they come reasonably close together, and that sense that you talked about of that unfolding from compression to expansion is kind of related to the way that you've sort of worked your color palette, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, if you take a house and you make it into one massive space, then it feels smaller. So, I've been into houses that are absolutely enormous, and basically it's one enormous room, bifold doors all the way across the back, and you think, oh, actually, it feels much smaller than it is. So it's a bit like lighting, really. I mean, we've got a background in hospitality and stuff as well. So you never design like a restaurant. You never design a restaurant with a uniform lighting palette. There's always dark spaces, there's lighter spaces, there's little things highlighted with pinpricks of light and stuff like that. So like that, you want your home, the home should have contrast, basically, and that can be due with orientation. The rooms that face south may be different from the rooms that face north, but I think it's about not just making a uniform barn, basically, that I think feels small and doesn't sort of lacks magic, I think. Yeah.
It's a beautifully detailed house as well, Christian. I imagine you have to work really closely with your builder and making sure that all those details are realized.
Yeah, I mean, with the terrazzo stuff, we did have a sort of like an artisan maker we've worked with a lot, and which enables us to actually do this house didn't have a massive budget. We have to be inventive about the way we do stuff, the way we work with tradesmen and stuff. I mean, like the balustrade was actually made up on site. Someone, I've actually got a little video that they just used like a jigsaw and eventually just chopped this up, chopping away and sanding it down. So everything there's no real, none of the joinery is made by a special joinery firm. Nothing's made by a specialist. It's all what we can do with the general builder, really. It's obviously there's a degree of, the builder we use is quite, they're quite skillful people. It's, a lot of details to interpret, but again, we're not working with huge budgets here. I mean, it's quite a modest, it's a modest scaled house, so a suitably modest budget, basically. And again, that's done by, that's done by selecting areas of the house to spend more money on, and then some areas of the house say, well, we don't need, maybe this room just has a carpet, or maybe this we have a nice wooden floor, and it was not all about filling the house with millions and millions of linear meters of really, really expensive joinery. Keep it, spend the money where it needs to be spent, basically.
Should we push on with the next project, or have you got some questions there, Dean, that you want to fire at Christian?
No, they can wait till the end.
Lovely.
Okay. Right. So can we see this now? Yeah. Due to the bad internet connection.
Still loading.
Just thinking. It's coming.
Sorry, it's our office internet is really, really bad. I've got everybody else to.
There we go.
Participants can now see your application. Okay, great. So
There you go.
So this is I chose this project, basically, this is a project that isn't finished yet. It's a project that's on site. So I thought, oh, well, you know, it's nice to have a project that's new. And also it's another modern house. Again, so it's a good match for the other one. It's actually a bigger house this time. And it's a very, very odd house, this. So on the left, so this house is in Wimbledon. The last house is in. On the left is what was quite a grand house, you know, a sort of Edwardian house, which is listed. And it used to be a school. And back in sort of 20 years ago, a property developer bought it and turned it into flats. And on this little bit of land on the side, they built this very, very curious little wooden house, extremely odd, funny little squat thing. And it's really narrow. It's not very wide, but it's very, very long. So we went to his house, and it's quite a puzzling thing. And this is the interior. So our client, what they said, oh, it's a really, really weird house. It's like living in a flat. It's like living in Canary Wharf, because you come through the front door and you're in this enormous space. There's no like ceremony. There's nowhere to put your shoes, nowhere to put your coat. You're just in this big room. And this is a bit the conversation we were having earlier about if you just have a massive room, it actually doesn't feel that big. You know, it doesn't. It's actually a really big space, this, but it feels. And you can see from the photos how dark it is. So this is a long, thin house, and you can see obviously where the staircase is. It's really bright, but the main body of the house is really, really dark. And obviously on the left, you know, you can see the staircase. It's quite a sort of, you know, there's no ceremony to it. There's no joy in it, really. It's sort of, you know, the whole thing's slightly joyless, very dark, heavy wood, dark stone floors, and there are really weird things like the toilet. So when the door was open, you can sort of see the toilet when you were having your dinner at the table. Really, really weird things. And the other thing is it faces quite a busy road. So we had this really big window facing like the bus stop. It seemed really weird way round. This is the plan of it, as you can see. Great big barn of a space, one giant room. That was it, basically. This is the elevations, a big box and a few little windows on the side. So what we thought, well, there's a sort of classic plan, an arts and crafts plan from basically the Edwardian era, where you have a house and you say, okay, I'll take the rooms that face south, or the rooms with the best view, go one side. The rooms where maybe the sunlight is less important, go on the other side, and then you have a big open space in the middle, which is the hall. So does this plan come up, actually, the big plan?
Yeah,
I'm not sure what people can see. Yeah, so as you can see, we took the plan, and again, it's the same discussion about, you know, open plan is good, but maybe you need a relief from open plan. Maybe too much open plan is a bad thing. So we added and the other issue with this house is how we deal with its appearance, which is really odd. This sort of wooden box. The house is actually made of concrete blocks with wood stuck on the front. So we added a little porch at the front. Again, that's another bit of our story. So this time you enter in quite a small little room. In the middle is a really, really big double height hall. At the left is a sitting room, a dining room, a kitchen. Again, a big open plan space. And this looks onto the garden. And then the garden looks on other gardens. And eventually, after about 30 gardens, you get to Wimbledon Common at the back. So at the front, we've got the living. Says living room, but actually it's more of a stug. So the clients know, I want somewhere to watch like films, watch the TV, you know, hang out in the evening. And this looked at the front. So we thought, okay, this is a room where the sunlight isn't that important. The noise of the traffic isn't that important. Let's put that here. And then obviously everybody's working at home now, so we have a study, and the study has a little window. The study's placed where this is the most overlooked space here, so that has the small window. And then as we go, a little cloakroom here, pantry, you know, straightforward plan. And then on the upstairs, the other thing I have to say is we've added lots of little extensions where we could. So we pushed out on the side here, a little extension on the back. Upstairs, it's quite simple. The top of the hallway, bedroom, big master suite at the back, dressing rooms, and a little ensuite for the main bedroom. So then the next thing is when we were talking to the clients, we sort of said, oh, let's go for a walk around, you know, some amazing streets. You know, this part of Wimbledon, really amazing Edwardian architecture. So he said, oh, I want to look at other stuff. I want to look at, you know, there's all these beautiful houses. So we sort of, you know, we say, well, what is it about these houses? What is it in this era of architecture, and, you know, the sort of the symmetry and the asymmetry and the sort of expression and materials. And we sort of had a conversation and just go, well, you know, we can't, you know, we could build a replica of a house like this, but with the budget, we can't, you know, we can't pay, we don't have the budget for those sort of craft skills. So we thought, well, let's take some themes, let's take some ideas from these buildings, and let's try and make a modern version that can be constructed by an everyday building materials, basically. So this was the two sides of the coin. The first side of the coin was introducing some drama into a barn, splitting a barn into spaces, and the second was about how we remodel the facade. And the remodeling of the facade was a very straightforward thing. So the remodeling of the facade was literally building a new wall in front of the old wall of the house. So we dug a foundation in front of the existing house. We just built a new front on. And the other thing to say about that is that also enabled us to massively increase the insulation of the house. So the house was actually good to start with, but we had 10 centimeters of insulation. So we've now got 30 centimeters of insulation, which is absolutely, you know, that's a really, really well insulated house. And we also changed all the double glazing to triple glazing. So, and we upgraded the insulation on the roof. So we've taken something that probably made the building regs 20 years ago and, you know, significantly exceeds, you know, it's quite as a house with lots of external wall, we've tried to make it as cheap to run as possible. Again, this is another couple, this is just a sheet from an early presentation. So we were looking at forms of staircase here. So we're looking at, you know, ideas of staircase, how to light staircases, sort of forms, similar things to the last project. Again, the idea of a staircase. So some of these are contemporary stuff. Some of these are from, you know, great classic buildings from history. Some of it depends. And then the real difficult thing to crack on this was the facade. So we did a lot of work on this. So this is just a couple of, this is just a sheet of, I mean, we had all sorts of models, and we had a model of the building, and we had different fronts we could take off and put back on again, and all sorts of stuff. So this was a real difficulty trying to come to a design that was buildable by a normal builder, didn't require lots of special bits of stone cuts, and that worked with the peculiarities of this house, where there are people passing by the front quite closely. It's a busy road. There's sort of people looking in. There's lots of issues. And this is page 2, where I don't know if that's come up yet. Anyway, this is page 2, where we're trying to refine the design a little bit more. And then this page here. This is sort of where we make a model. This is not the model where we have the removable fronts. That was a different scale of model. So this is a little model. This is where we sort of trying to, you know, we're trying to come to a bit of a resolution with the design. So the little grey thing on the side is actually the extensions we added on, which are just made of render.
Okay.
As an economical method of building, basically. So then this is the, does this come up actually as the photo image?
We're still on, yeah, of the model. Oh no, the renders here. Yeah.
The renders here. Okay. So this is where we sort of finally came to. So this is the image of the front of the house. So as you see, we were limited by the rather squat proportions of the host building. Actually, I got the modeler to remove all the, there's actually a big bush here. So although this is a busy road, the bush shields this window here, which is the TV room. And then this window here, which is very exposed, is quite a little window. And this leads on to the study, because other people who live in this house can pass across the front here. This is the porch on the side, and these are the bedrooms at the front. And it was actually the stripy top actually was the client's suggestion. So, you know, so that shows you, you know, actually, I thought that's, you know, at the time I was a bit like, that's going to be, not sure about that. But then when we actually drew it, I thought, oh, that's a really good idea. I really enjoy that. That's really nice. And of course, so there's a funny story about this. So actually, what happened with this project is we tendered it just before COVID, and when COVID hit, the client said, "Oh, I'm thinking of, I'm going to sell up. I'm going to go live on the coast, and I'm just going to get a one-bed flat somewhere in London." So said, "Oh, fortunately, project's cancelled." So he said, "Oh, that's a real shame." So he put the house on the market, and then we thought, well, we need to get something. We spent so long on this project. We've done all the drawings, got the tenders back, ready to start. So we just commissioned some renders, which is this and another one. And then we put them on our Instagram account, and then the client saw them, and then he thought, oh, actually, I really like it. So he said, I'm going to build it now. So, you know, that was a good thing, you see. So we didn't even show them the renders. We just put them on our Instagram. But anyway, that was a useful thing. And then this is the hallway. Again, very similar to the last project. It's a double height space. Actually, it looks huge, but this is another thing we like to see, which is to play with the scale. So to make spaces that are domestic in scale, so they're around the body. You know, it's not a museum, it's not an art gallery, it's someone's home. So it's got an intimate feeling, but it's got the grandeur of a bigger space, I think. So again, here we go. So the left is the sunny rooms with the view. To the right are the more private rooms. A staircase wraps up the back. We were able to put the windows in the side, can't have clear glass. So these are sort of obscured windows. We've got a little round window, a really tall window, and then we've got some roof lights at the top. And the thing about, another point I want to make about the roof lights is, generally sky isn't that interesting. So people say, oh, I want a massive roof light, big roof light, the whole of the house. So there's numerous disadvantages with that. One is that in winter, it's black glass. It's a big black hole, big gloomy black hole to look at. In summer, you probably overheat. And again, I never think just blue sky is that great thing to look at. So what we try to do is basically do something like this, where actually the roof light's quite small and it's set quite high up. So it's more about the diffusion of the light than it is just looking at the sky. And that means that in winter, it's less gloomy. In summer, it's less likely to directly overheat. And again, it provides qualities of light. So when you're in this space, which is now being built, the staircase is really, really bright. The space behind it is slightly darker. Again, it's about these contrasts. So just to sort of finish off very quickly, this is it being built. So this is like this is it in construction. So again, you know, which I don't know if this has come up yet, but again, we're trying to achieve these things with quite, as you can see, it's none of these projects are super big budget. So they're all achieved with quite simple, you know, this is achieved with bits of wood, bits of plywood, bits of plasterboard, so trying to be clever with ordinary materials to make something impressive. I mean, we have, luckily on this job, as on the last job, we had really, really good builders, some really skillful tradesmen, and very good conversation with them. So, you can't achieve things like this with bad builders who don't want to have a conversation. You can only, it has to be a very collaborative process, basically. And you can't achieve any of these things without the client support 100%, because, you'll hit things along the way. So, it's really important the client 100% buys into everything you're doing. And, you have a very cooperative builder who's as keen on the result as you are, basically. This is a little roof. Again, this is a sort of last week. So again, this is the little roof light, and this is what I'm saying. This is my little comment about, this roof light. You don't really look at the glass. You look at the effect of the light, which I think is a nicer effect really than just the big hole in the ceiling. And this again is a little playful touch, this semicircle here. So the idea of this is it's somewhere to stand to talk to people downstairs, or you might have a little chair here perhaps, or you can look over here and see who's at the front door, or even you might step in there if someone wants to pass you. So unfortunately, I don't. Again, this is another view. So this is the. I'm not sure if this has come up yet, but this is the little sort of balcony, little touch here. Again, the stair. Unfortunately, I don't have any images of the front because the house is built so close to the boundary. It's really bang up to the hoarding. So this is all I've got, which is a little view of the round window here. So. Which is the best.
I do love a little round window. A
little round window, yeah. So
everyone loves them.
This window gives onto a study, and behind this window is a little library around the porthole, which is, so this is the client's where she's going to work from home. Again, this is actually an aluminium window. These aren't expensive bricks, but we did point them with lime mortar, which gives quite a nice effect here. So that's the end of my slides, basically. Sorry about the delay. I hope what was talking about matched the slide, which maybe it didn't. I don't know.
No, we got there. Okay, that's fine.
Okay,
and
good.
How was the planning process with such a ambitious facade on the?
Well, I mean, at the moment, all planning processes are terrible because of. The planning, just because post-COVID, I mean, this is actually pre-COVID. The planning went on for a long, long time, but for no other reason that there was numerous planning officers and people kept leaving, and the planning. The only suggestion we had from the planning officer when we originally drew it, we showed red bricks, and they said, "Oh, change it to purple bricks to match the next door building." And actually, they were right, because it's much nicer in purple bricks than red bricks. Apart from that, they didn't really have anything to say, to be honest. I mean, but that didn't stop it being extremely lengthy, but there was no reason for that. I mean, that's just, I mean, any architects you talk to will probably have similar, depending on the borough. I mean, some boroughs are quite good, but we'll have
it's more the process, more the process than the design.
Very painful, very painful. But I mean, I think they thought that what was there wasn't very good, so any improvement will make you better, but it's one of those things. I mean, obviously the other house, there was there was no change to the front, so that was uncontroversial in a way. Everything was hidden in the back. Although we did try and do a dorm window on the first house, and that was turned down at the back. But
you got anything to add, Christopher?
Just a quick one, Dean, before you get into our audience questions. Christian, you said that much of your business, like a lot of London architects, is sort of Victorian houses that you're working with. And I guess if you're the owner of a Victorian house, it's a fairly easy decision to take on a refurbishment, extension, and remodeling. Really encouraging to see two projects such as this that are sort of, 70s, 80s, not particularly, interesting bones to work with to get started. So congratulations to your clients, first of all. Do you have an ideal client? Is there a certain, level of engagement or interest that you're looking from?
I mean, what we hope is that people choose us because they like our work. So that's the most important thing, really. There's a lot of variety in our work. So I've chosen two projects in a way very similar because they have similar scenarios. But if you look at our work, there's a lot of variety in it. So I think the ideal client is, all our clients are different, as you say earlier. Some people are very much of the attitude that they want us to show stuff. Some clients have a whole load of stuff that they want to talk about, a whole load of, hundreds maybe of images they want to talk about, hundreds, they want to bring lots of stuff to the table. I mean, which occurs anyway. Because even in the first house, for example, I didn't show the image, but there's a really nice bathroom made of pink polished plaster. And that was basically almost entirely the client's idea. So we just, we realized it, but that was what she wanted to do. And actually it was, a great decision because it's a really nice bathroom. And again, on the house we're just being constructed, the client said, "Oh, I want to have this stripy top." And we were, initially we were thinking, "Oh, maybe that's not sketchable." But actually that was 100% the right idea. So we're not prima donnas in a way. We're always open. There's always, we value input, really. I mean, it's not a one-way. We're not just saying we're doing this. It's always a conversation. It's always a chat. And as I say, we like clients that buy in, that really, get enthusiastic about it, who really want to do it. Because then, unless everybody wants to do it, it won't get done. Basically, it won't. You've got to, doing these jobs is, going through the planning process, going through the tender. It's an involved process. So, just sort of stick with us, I guess, is what we say, really. Some projects come together really quickly. Some projects take a long time. It just depends on the client, depends on the site, really. Some are easier things to crack. Some are, comes to you straight away, basically. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Good.
Brilliant.
What else have you got there, Dean?
We've got Vindhya who's asking, what do you feel is the most challenging part, the design process or on site? I probably know the answer to that one.
If you've got a bad builder, then if you've got an uncooperative builder, then the site process is an absolute nightmare. So if you've got a good builder who wants to achieve a good product, and it's as useful for the builder to get a good product as it is for us in a way, because that really helps them. That can really, we work, some of the builders we work with, we started when they were really small and they sort of outgrow us, and then we start with someone else. So I would say not having an uncooperative builder is the most difficult part of the process, I would say. Site's always challenging. There's always, there's always things you don't know about. There's always things that, things to deal with. But I would say definitely the site stage is more challenging.
Brilliant. And we'll probably just wrap up with one more question, just because we're getting on a bit. Before you start a build or even tender, do you have absolutely everything specified and all final details finalized? Or do you tend to design and provisionally design and then finalize on site?
I say before you start, you need to have everything drawn.
Yeah.
Other than things like, we always choose the colors on site. It's the only way you can choose a color is by getting tester pots and painting it on the wall.
That's interesting.
Everything else you've got to have ready made, because everything's linked. So, every bit of house that's demolished then fits a new wall, and every new wall then fits a piece of joinery. So you can't really, if you want it to work as a harmonious whole, it needs to be considered together. That's not saying that, we often do jobs and we say, okay, that bit's a bit expensive, we'll cut all that joinery. So sometimes the client says, like on that house in Wimbledon, that room at the front, the study, we're now fitting out as this amazing library, but that wasn't in tender. But I would say, because everything's interconnected, and it's not a good idea to change things after the tender. And also, obviously, prices at tender are much, much keener than variations after the tender. So
Yeah.
if I'm getting priced, say, a bespoke kitchen, I'll get a much better tender, much better price in a competitive situation than I would do once I've got my builder on board and I'm saying to her or him, you know, price with his kitchen. It's just the nature of the game, basically. So, and also it's very, very stressful. When you're on site, you've got to keep all the balls in the air. And if you're trying to do design and get them to build stuff, it's really, really difficult, you know, and the builder would just get frustrated because you end up making it up as you go along. And that's not a good idea, basically.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, you could change one tile, you know, even like a tile. So, you know, if you've got like a certain tile of a dimension, you draw the whole bathroom so it fits an even number of tiles, and the little recess is a certain number of tiles. So if you change the tile, then, you know, you might have to change the whole bathroom design. So, you know, it's important to, I think it's important to get everything as well considered as possible before you start on site. Yeah. To make everybody's life stress-free, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That's what we want.
Thanks very much, Christian.
Good. Excellent.
Really appreciate your input. And thank you for showing us around some beautiful homes.
Yeah, I'll look forward to watching the other ones that are coming up next week.
Yeah, and we're very much looking forward to seeing this box house finished. Well, I think it can be finished in November, end of November is a finish date now. So, yeah, good. Well, thank you very much. Sorry about the slides being a bit slow, but I think it's due to our terrible internet connection in this office. But no problem at all. All right. No problem. All right. So thank you, everyone. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Really appreciate it. We've got another 3 sessions coming up over the next 2 weeks. So check out our website and get signed up and join us for those.
What's that website address, Dean?
WeDesignHomes.co.uk. There we go.
Thanks for
I'm
joining us.
terrible at this. Take care. Have a good evening.